Alright, man, peace. You know, brothers, it might seem like an overused colloquialism, but life really does seem to have a way of working itself out. Just a couple of weeks ago, we all pretty much understood and knew that not only was Joel Embiid, the star center of the Philadelphia 76ers, the odds-on favorite to win the NBA's 2020-2021 Most Valuable Player Award for the regular season. We pretty much understood that. And for those of us who are real basketball connoisseurs who pay attention to the sport, we also understood that LeBron James, the superstar but fading superstar, small/power forward/point forward of the LA Lakers, should barely crack the top 5 when it came to NBA MVP consideration. Even though, as usual, because LeBron James has assets in the mainstream liberal sports media that rival communist Russia when it comes to propaganda, they were trying to once again talk up his name for this career achievement NBA MVP award that they've been desperate to get him for the last 5 years so that he could tie Jordan. Well, the Most High worked everything out just a couple of days ago and had LeBron James go down. And there's nothing against the brother. I don't root for players to get injured. But they were about to try to rob Joel Embiid. I've never seen anything like this before. The cat Joel goes down with a knee injury that they say is going to keep him out for about 2 weeks. And almost every pundit that is on television, I'm not talking about the voters, I'm talking about the pundits who appear on television, were ready to put forth their incessant and never-ending and everlasting propaganda about how now LeBron James is the favorite to win MVP. And this is why this false notion of LeBron James being robbed of MVP gets bandied about. It's because these clowns on television talk him up in a way that he does not deserve and makes people believe that he's getting robbed of NBA MVP awards that he does not deserve. Once again, you can make a better case that he's gotten NBA regular season MVPs that he did not deserve, then he's been robbed. But unfortunately for the brother, he went down a couple of days ago with a high ankle sprain. So now it's going to force a conversation so that people can start considering who the real NBA's most valuable player has been this season. Has it been James Harden? Has it been Kawhi Leonard? Has it been Giannis Antetokounmpo? Has it been Donovan Mitchell? Has it been Chris Paul? Or maybe even his teammate Devin Booker? These are the names that should have been bandied about for the longest time. Has it been Kyrie Irving? Now we know that Kyrie has no chance. He's missed too many games and the media does not like him. But to me, he's been every bit as valuable to his team as LeBron has been to his. These are the conversations that should have been bandied about for a very long time now. In my view also, Stephen Curry has had, honestly, a top 3 level impact season. It's just that his team does not provide him with any offensive help. But players like Dame Lillard, Nikola Jokic, in my view, have had better seasons than LeBron James and deserve to be in that quote-unquote conversation before him. But they were about to rob all those guys to try to give it to LeBron and force it on LeBron. So once again, the Most High has a way of working things out. So the question begs to be asked, who is the NBA's real MVP this season? Of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
You're talking LeBron James. LeBron is out indefinitely, guys, after suffering that high ankles.
I saw that shit when it happened live. I knew that was not no regular injury that happened to that dude when he went down. And when he tried to do that Wolverine healing factor thing that he tries to do all the time when he gets hurt, when he takes off his sneaker and reties it and all that other shit, I said, no. That's not going to work this time, bro.
Yesterday, all choked up about it. I had a tough weekend when I heard the news. Lakers were tracking for that top spot out west. LeBron tracking.
Please understand, a high ankle sprain, that's a nice way of saying that his ankle was almost broke. That's really what a high ankle sprain means. That it was a hair's breadth away from being broke.
5th MVP. Our guy Nick tracking to make a ton of money on both things happening. So what now? Yeah. Well, Fox Bet Sportsbook has the latest MVP odds. And look at that. Nikola Jokic
has had the best season overall of any player in the NBA from start to finish this season. He should never have fallen anywhere farther than 3rd at any point this year. Every time I watch him play, I always say this. He's basically a confirmation when it comes to how potent Larry Bird would be if he played today, because Larry Bird had almost the same exact game as Nikola Jokic, except better.
The new favorite at plus 100, followed by the King, Joel Embiid, Giannis, and then there's Harden.
Please keep in mind, Nikola Jokic is having an historically great season. He's only about an assist away, like 1.4 assists away from averaging a 27-point triple-double at center.
We got our MVP, Chris Broussard, back with us now. All right, Broussard, let's talk about this from the MVP angle. How will LeBron's injury impact the MVP race?
Well, it never really should have impacted it in the first place because he never really should have been considered as highly as he was. But once again, this is divine providence, this is divine justice, because he's been removed from the MVP conversation as he always should have been.
Jenna, I'm baffled by those odds from Fox Bets.
You baffled by a lot of things.
I mean, those are strange to me. I see it completely differently. But look, since media have been voting for the MVP award since 1981, no player has missed more than 13% of the games and won the award. That was Allen Iverson in 01, I believe, was the year he won it. And he was so far ahead of everybody else, he was able to win it playing 71 of 82 games.
Let me also say this, and I may have mentioned this in other videos. Watch out for Luka Doncic making a late season push for NBA regular season MVP. He's been a top 2, top 3 player in the league for the last month and a half now.
If LeBron is out the next 3 weeks, which is obviously a very optimistic goal, but if he's out the next 3 weeks, that'll be about 11 games he would have missed, and he's already missed 1. That's 12. That's almost 17% of the season. So it is going to be very tough for him to win it if he only misses 3 weeks. If he misses 4, Nick mentioned earlier he thinks he'll be out a month. If it's a month or more, he's definitely out of it. I think
Wait a minute. When Joel Embiid went down last week and they said he was going to be out for 2 weeks, you guys said he's definitely out of it. Now you need LeBron James to be out for 3 weeks or more for you to consider him out of it. Why is that, Chris Broussard?
Chance he'd have even missing 3 weeks would be if the Lakers completely fell out, almost lost every game without him, fell to the 8th seed or lower, and then he comes back and he leads them to a top 4 seed. You know, it would have to be something like that to happen. So LeBron is...
What Chris Broussard is doing is trying to create a scenario for LeBron James to still possibly win the MVP award. Basically, he's saying in coded language, LeBron, no matter how long you're out, as long as you come back with time to make a serious dent or serious influence in the overall Western Conference situation or scenario, if you can bump your team back up the standings from the 7th or 8th seed to the 4th seed, we'll be able to put forth enough propaganda in the mainstream liberal news that maybe we can get you that 5th MVP so that you can tie Jordan.
Pretty much out of it. Although this is a strange year because Embiid's hurt, so he's going to miss some games. He was the leader. Other leaders, teams aren't, in the top 3 or 4 seeds. So it's an odd year. But right now, my favorite would be James Harden at this point.
Right now, my favorite would be Nikola Jokic. I think that James Harden has been the most valuable player, but just speaking from a realistic perspective, I think that the media is going to start to turn their eyes towards Nikola and the season that he's been having, because he's having a historically great season. And plus, the media has not liked Harden for a while now. I mean, going back to his Houston days, even before he basically quit his way out. We knew that Kevin Durant was going to have a historically great season to have a chance to win it, because the media does not particularly like him also. And Kyrie Irving, he's never going to win it. He'd have to have an Allen Iverson times Steph Curry season for him to win the MVP award. Like what the season that Iverson had in 01 and the season that Curry had in 2016 combined, for him to have a chance, a realistic opportunity to win the MVP award. So I think that the eyes are going to turn to Nikola Jokic. If Denver can continue their good play, I think they had won 5 or 6 games in a row until they lost their last game. With the stats that he's putting up consistently, he probably will have the best chance of winning MVP. I don't think that they want to give the award to Giannis again.
He has to be the favorite now. And rounding out my top 5, not in an order necessarily, but I put Jokic in the top 5. Chris Paul now, has to be in there. Damian Lillard has got to start getting...
Right, Chris Paul has to be in there, but he's not going to win. I like to just talk about the players who have a realistic chance. To me, realistically, it's Nikola Jokic, it's Harden, and it's only going to be Harden because of the level of impact that he's having on the Nets. But he's going to have to be even more exemplary to throw his name in the hat as a realistic, opportunity to win or a realistic contender for that MVP award. And Giannis. Now, if Joel can come back relatively healthy in another week and pick up where he left off, then of course we'll throw his name back into that hat. But offensively, Nikola Jokic is having the best season in the league. And it's not even, I won't say that it's not necessarily close, but it's discernible that he's been the best offensive player in the NBA.
Damian Lillard he has a chance.
Here's the problem with Dame and the Blazers. Dame will go out there over a 5-game stretch and average 35 points per game, and then he'll have one of those 7 for 28 games, and they'll lose by 40 to a team like Phoenix or a team like Dallas or, a team along those lines. And that makes a big difference in how he's esteemed by the public and also by the voters in the media.
They're the 6th seed, but if they could move to a 3 or 4 seed, the way he's playing, he has a legitimate chance. And then Nick, Giannis. The numbers obviously are there. They're starting to win games, and he is starting to close. Now, we'll see if he can keep it up. But he's actually been closing out some games.
Look, I've always said this about Giannis. There's never been a player in the history of the NBA who's been asked to do the things that Giannis has been asked to do the last 2 years. Never in history, by the media I'm talking about. They're asking him to be a power player who can close. There's never been a power player in the history of the NBA who was a closer. At least not of an MVP caliber. When you're talking about power players who are MVP caliber players, you're talking about Wilt, Moses Malone, Shaquille O'Neal. Giannis is of that ilk. Giannis is not a skilled craftsman like a Kevin Durant or someone along those lines, or Larry Bird. So asking him to close is asking him to do something outside of his prototype, outside of his archetype. The media is asking him to close. They're also asking him to be a great free throw shooter. And this is on top of the 28 points per game, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, 2.5 blocks, 2.5 steals that he's bringing almost every game. And also to win a championship without another superstar, which no power player and no big man basically has ever done other than Olajuwon in '94. I cannot think of another great big man or another great power player, and I would not count Olajuwon as a power player per se. He was more of a skilled craftsman. But I can't think of another big man who's been able to win a championship without another superstar level talent on his team. And they're asking Giannis to do that, especially in the era of the stretch offense, the stretch 4, and small ball and pull up from 3. It's just not going to happen.
Making plays rather than just roll into the basket or getting putbacks and stuff. So I think Giannis now moves into the top 5.
Who's your favorite right now?
I would go with Harden
right now. Who's your favorite right now? Okay, it warms my heart right now because I think we're pushing 2 months. When I stood up here and said, guys, we're not talking about this guy enough.
Well, here's the thing. We know what James Harden can do. But James Harden is like he's like the beautiful former flame that you feel like did you dirty. You know that they're talented, or the person who got fired from their job, they were great at their job, but they always came late. We know what James is capable of, but there are certain people who have an axe to grind with him. So that is going to play a factor when it comes to voting.
The first one in America talking about James Harden. Everybody else was still talking about his stomach and how he was overweight. Everybody else was still talking about how he left Houston. And I was the one saying he is doing something next level. This dude came into Brooklyn and he...
Yo, it is so easy to get to the basket now in the NBA. It's so crazy. Like, if Jordan played today, oh my God.
Became the best player. I know KD. Oh, KD. Without him, they're not a real contender. I'm sorry.
I would agree with that. If this team still was what they started the season as, with KD and Kyrie as the 2 main protagonists, they would be just another top contender thrown into the hat. With James Harden, I won't necessarily say that they're the prohibitive favorites to win the championship, but I think that they should be considered the favorites.
But without James Harden, not a real contender. So he's number 1. It warms my heart that you are now seeing it, and now you're on the other side. Can we throw up that full screen again with the Fox Sports Bets and showing, who's this and who's that, whatever. Jokic, listen, the precedent was already set. You have to win. He's sitting here at the 5 seed. Now he has a chance with LeBron going down to now move up. But
yeah, they have to keep winning. Once again, the issue with Denver is that they have 2 very good young players. Well, Jokic I would count as a great player. I can't call him a superstar yet because he has not won a championship. Jamal Murray, he's just too mercurial. One game he'll shoot 4 for 18. The next game he'll shoot 14 for 18. What they really need is to package a lot of those young players that they have in a couple of first-round draft picks and send them over to the Washington Wizards and see if they can get back Beal. If they can do that, they'd have to have their names thrown into the hat as a real contender to win a championship. As of right now, they don't have enough.
If you're sitting at the 5 seed, I'm sorry, Jokic, you can't win an MVP. I need to see some more wins. You just lost to New Orleans, so you're out of it. LeBron, you just...
New Orleans can beat any team on any given night. Their problem is that they have too many of the same type of ball player. They have like 4 different point guards on that team. To me, they have to trade Brandon Ingram. I'm not quite sure if they're going to be able to do it because they just paid him. But Brandon Ingram is one of those guys. Every generation you have a guy who scores 25 empty points a game. What he does to me is not conducive to winning. He's not particularly a proficient or efficient scorer. In my view, he's jealous of Zion. And he likes to play basketball the same way that Zion does. When what Zion needs are more shooters to expand the floor so that he can be even more potent when driving the ball to the basket. Once again, in my view, I would trade Brandon Ingram if I were them.
Talked about LeBron, and Embiid, they're both with the red marks right there, the red crosses, they're injured. You can't be in the tub and you can't be considered MVP. So you're out of it. And now you're left with 2 people. Giannis, hold on 1 second. You're left with Giannis and you're left with Harden. Now here's the question, because we got somebody who owns a seat at the table to vote for the MVP. One of the things that you said Friday was historical significance. So are we willing to give Giannis the MVP 3 years in a row? That is the question.
I agree, and that is a very pivotal question to ask. I'm not quite sure if you can give a player 3 straight regular season MVPs who's never won a championship, who's never even made it to the finals. Larry Bird is the last player to win 3 straight regular season MVPs, and he won 2 championships out of those 3 seasons, and in the 3rd season, he lost in the finals. So, I mean, that's something that definitely is going to apply to Giannis, and it's going to be a major factor when it comes to the MVP voting down the stretch of this season.
Or not, then the MVP is going to go to James Harden.
Brandon,
look, if they quickly answer Brandon, people are falling out. That's the I hear you on Giannis, but he's not completely out of it. That's all I'm saying.
Go ahead, Wiles. Okay, Brandon has a lot of side jobs, right? He's got this job. He's got, he owns the House of Athlete. He also has the podcast. What he is not is a DJ, because he's not good at remixing songs. So the take that he gave was supposed to be, you can't make the club in the tub, and he tried to put up a remix of you can't win the MVP in the tub. It didn't work. Brett. Brett. They're like, oh, you're remixing too much? No, not good.
You listen too close. Nick, you listen to me too closely.
I think there's a simple answer to this. I know we like to have debates, but isn't it just PER? And doesn't it...
Basically, this dude Wiles is coming to the same conclusion that I'm coming to. For the most part, the player efficiency rating leader is normally also on one of the top 2 to 3 teams in the league in the regular season. Almost every year, the player who leads the league in PER is going to finish top 2 in MVP voting. And if he's on the best team in the league, he almost certainly is going to win the MVP.
It hurts the sports talk industry. We're like, hey, let's just look at PR. Look at Nick. Giannis won back-to-back, led the league in PER. Harden, 1 MVP, led the league in PR. Russ, 1 MVP, led the league in PR. Steph, what do you do? 1 MVP, led the league in PER. Yeah, Jokic is leading the league in PER. It is what it is. Yeah,
I thought that Jokic has been a top 2 contender for the MVP award, no lower than top 3 for the majority of the season. For the vast majority of the season, in my view, it was he and Embiid who've been bandying the award between the two of them. Harden, of course, is shooting up with a bullet. Once again, watch out for Luka Doncic down the stretch of this season. But I agree with Wiles. As of right now, Jokic is the NBA's regular season MVP when you just look at how he's impacted his team with his unbelievable offensive play. He might be the best overall offensive player at center, the most skilled offensive player at center that I've seen since Hakeem Olajuwon.
The last 6 years, it just makes sense, and I know it's not misleading at all. It's straightforward. Go, Nick.
It is. You can show it again. What all of those guys have in common, though, aside from Russ, is their teams also led the NBA in wins.
Right, but once you say aside from Russ, that throws Jokic's name into the hat because he's also having an historically great season. Please keep in mind, he's not only just leading the NBA in PER, he also is just an assist and a half shy of averaging a triple-double at center, which has never happened in the history of the NBA. There have only been 2 players in the history of the NBA who averaged a triple-double over the course of the entire season. Russell Westbrook and Oscar Robertson, both guards who dominated the basketball. This guy Jokic, his decision-making, one really can make the estimation that he might be having the greatest decision-making season of any big man in the history of the league. Once again, he's almost averaging a triple-double at center.
They were the best player on the best team. All of those teams, guys, won the most games, except for Russ. Russ, what he did was he won a scoring title and averaged a triple-double. There's a lot to unpack here, though. First, let me go to Brandon and then to Broussard. Brandon, remind me real quick, and I apologize for putting you on the spot like this. Preseason, what was your NBA Finals prediction before the year started? What was it?
Clippers, Nets. Clippers, Nets winning in 6.
Okay, so before the Nets had James Harden, you had them winning the title. And now you are saying he's the MVP because without them he couldn't have won the title. I got to do the math on that one. I got to figure that one out.
Hold on. Time out. Let me answer that. Let me answer that. Yes, that's preseason. Then we got into the season, and it didn't look pretty. It didn't look pretty until we got there. It was just up and down. It was.
To his point, and that's fair, he was forced to reevaluate his preseason pick because the Nets did start to struggle. They got off to a relatively decent start, but basically they were like 2 games over 500 relatively deep into the season, like 15, 16 games in, and one had to wonder if they were going to be able to pull their team together to make a serious championship run. Because between Kyrie and KD, even though both of those players are extremely talented, especially in a half-court set, in the playoffs, you have to wonder, are they going to be enough with Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert to be able to overcome, the various styles of defenses that they're going to have to face? Especially, once you enter into the second round of the NBA playoffs, you tend to be facing the best defenses in the league. And all that dribble, all that's cool, but you have to have 3 elite level one-on-one players out there on the floor, not just 2. So once you bring in Harden, you add that dynamic of who are we going to try to stop, who are we going to try to guard.
That's right. That's fair. And Kyrie stepped away, and KD got hurt, so that's all fair. Here's the other point.
Right.
This is going to be, Broussard, a precedent-breaking MVP season. Because all the top contenders, there is no precedent for it. So LeBron and Embiid, who I think if the season stopped today, they're the top 2 guys because they haven't missed enough time for them to be knocked out of it. It's that we say they're going to miss more time. LeBron and Embiid will have missed too much time.
LeBron definitely. Stop mentioning him. He's done. He's not going to win the MVP award. Stop talking about that dude.
Jokic, let's even say the Nuggets win more games than they currently have. In the last 25 years, we have only had 1 MVP come from a bad defensive team. 1. A bad defensive player on a bad defensive team. Steve Nash. You can be like, oh, what about Steph? So those teams were top 5 defense. When Harden won his MVP, they were top 5 defense.
Right, but here's the thing, Nick Wright. Once you try to establish alleged precedents, and according to your own testimonial, that precedent has already been broken, much less by a player who not only won MVP but won them in back-to-back years, you're basically refuting your own argument.
When Russ won his MVP, top 5 defense, all of them top 10 defense for Russ. That Jokic would be the worst defensive player on a bad defensive team to win the award other than Nash. Then go down the list. Because I would have those as your top 3. Then I would have Dame, who has to be included in this conversation. You mentioned it. And then you have to start including Luka. You've got to start including Giannis. You've got to start including Kawhi. And then you can have James Harden. All of those guys would be precedent breaking.
We can have that type of conversation with all of those players, but that's really just for barbershop talk. If we're going to have a realistic conversation when it comes to MVP award winners and possible MVP award winners, it's going to be Jokic, it's going to be Embiid, it's going to be Giannis on the outside looking in, it's going to be James Harden. Right now, James Harden, Embiid, and Jokic are the top 3 guys. I think that Dame has an outside shot if his team gets hotter. But the horse in the race, once again, that brothers have to watch out for is Luka Doncic, especially if their team starts winning. Like, really winning.
Never had a guy win MVP playing for 2 teams in 1 year. It's never happened. Usually because guys get traded because they're not an MVP, or the only MVPs who get traded, it's because they actively quit on their team and we hold it against them. So no matter what, Broussard, this MVP race is going to be an unprecedented one in NBA history, right? Like, no matter what.
I do agree with you, Nick. And it could be a guy from a 5th seeded team. It could be a Dame or a Jokic or a Giannis getting it again. It really could happen. I mean, what if Harden goes down or misses some games, starts sitting out? Like, this is an odd year for MVP. No doubt about it.
Chris, just really quickly here, please don't let Nick Wright taint your voting privilege. Please don't do it.
Well, we already know what Nick Wright does. Every season, this LeBron James should be the double MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. I sincerely hope that he's getting paid more than peanuts from LeBron James and Clutch Sports to spew some of the nonsense that he spews.
Don't listen to him right now. He just talked for 5 minutes trying to get to you. Don't let him do it.
No, he's right. It's going to be precedence.
But anyway, that's basically it on that, brothers. We'll see how things go over the course of the remainder of the NBA season. As of right now, if I was forced to pick an NBA regular season award winner, I would say Jokic, but we'll see what happens when Embiid comes back. We'll see if the media starts to consider Harden more seriously. But he's also going to be impacted by the return of Kevin Durant. But once again, watch out for Luka Doncic. So peace.